The Minnesota Timberwolves won the draft. Drinking a Sprite Zero. Well, I was. It's actually empty now. Other than water, that's kind of been like my go-to drink. Some would say it's probably going to kill me. Whatever, you know? I feel like everything in the world can kill you. I don't drink them every day. They're in the fridge. Sometimes I'll snag one. Sometimes I'll say maybe I shouldn't drink one of those today. I'll drink them if I want to. Anyway, the T-Wolves won the draft. You could say it's bias. Sure, maybe it is. To me, it's pretty crystal clear. Now, this is no hate to the Spurs because personally I think Stephon Castle's going to be really good. But in my opinion, I feel like Rob Dillingham, if he wasn't considered the best offensive player in the draft, I think he's the most underrated offensive player in the draft. For me, someone who is from Kentucky, lives in Kentucky, and has grown up watching Kentucky basketball, I consider myself a pretty big Kentucky basketball fan. Maybe not the same fan I was back in 2012, during the whole reign of terror. And with Coach Cal gone now, the whole culture's kind of, experiencing some shock, but I think they still have a chance to be a pretty solid team. But the whole point of me mentioning that is because Rob Dillingham was my favorite college basketball player this season. So him getting drafted to the Timberwolves was just the best thing I could have asked for. And it's weird because this was a draft that I was so unexcited for that I almost didn't even want to watch it. But being the basketball fan I am, I decided why not. I really just want to know who the number one pick was because there just wasn't a unanimous number one pick, which is really weird and it made this whole draft feel kind of weird. I was expecting trades in the top 10, but when the T-Wolves came on the board and we saw that there was a trade, I was just kind of shocked. But I was really excited, I could say that. I was at work and I just started running around out of excitement because I didn't know what to do. The only good Timberwolves draft memory I have during my fan days was the day I became a Timberwolves fan when we traded for Jimmy Butler. I was originally a Bulls fan, I have to admit that, and that's only because of Derrick Rose. He was my favorite basketball player. Let me be clear, that's the only Chicago team I supported. Jimmy Butler, who was my favorite player post Derrick Rose, was traded to the Timberwolves, so I was like, you know what, let me just even it out and let me be an all Minnesota sports fan, and that's where I'm at now. I'm glad I'm not a Bulls fan right now, because they kind of suck. But now that I'm a Timberwolves fan, and a Kentucky basketball fan, you can see why I'm pretty excited about Rob Dillingham. Did that rhyme? I didn't even mean for that to rhyme. I think it rhymed, though. But I don't really think people know how good Rob Dillingham is. A lot of people know him just because of the overtime days and Shifty Rob, his nickname, because he is shifty and he's got handles, and he's just a really fun, entertaining player to watch, which is why I think he's really perfect for this Timberwolves team. A lot of people throw around the word aura nowadays, and apparently we have the most aura, which I would agree with. To me, as I was watching the Mavericks series and honestly the entire playoffs, I noticed that our bench scoring just wasn't up to par. Obviously our starting five is so dominant on offense that it's not that much of a problem, but when you look at guys like Jaden McDaniels, who just wasn't really scoring the ball like you would hope for him to, I understand that's not really his job, but we need guys like him to be able to produce on offense. Nickeil Alexander-Walker as well had some really great games where he's just, shooting lights out from the three-point line. And then other series, like in the Mavs series, you kind of forgot he was there. Not that I don't think Nah can still be like the backup shooting guard, which I believe he will, and I hope he is, because he's a great defender and he can score. He's not extremely reliable when it comes to scoring, but I think he's kind of right now just finding his game, and I would trust the process with Nah because I think he's going to be a really solid player for us and could help us win a championship. But Rob Dillingham is basically what we were missing on. We need some guy to come off the bench and run the ball and just get to the paint, score, shoot, and he can do all of those things. He's just somebody that makes the defense work a lot harder. I mean, we look at the Mavs, and I hate to compare Rob to Kyrie because that's not what I'm doing, but I'm kind of doing that. They have similar play styles, I would say. They're both pretty fast-paced. They're dynamic at the rim, can get to the paint really easily. They're not afraid to shoot the ball. So I think there's a lot of similarities between the two. Again, not saying they're the same player, that Rob Dillingham is the next Kyrie Irving. To be honest, I think Rob Dillingham is the next Rob Dillingham. That didn't make any sense. Maybe the first Rob Dillingham because that's what he is. But you know what I'm saying. To me, he's his own player. Now, as I said previously, I don't think people understand how good Rob Dillingham was in college. But what a lot of people notice is if you're drafting a guard from Kentucky in the top 10, he's probably got a high possibility, well, not even probably, he has a high possibility of being good. I mean, look at the previous guys that have been drafted. You have Shea, Jamal Murray, Devin Booker, and now Reed Shepherd. Just Kentucky players in general. I mean, there's two of them on the Olympic team right now. I believe there's two. Devin Booker and Anthony Davis, but It's a pretty safe bet to draft a Kentucky player if you don't know who to pick. But in the Timberwolves stance, I feel like this was the best player available and also the best fit. So it just kind of works out perfectly. Now for starters, Rob Dillingham was not a starter always. There's a couple games where he did have to start, but for the most part, he was coming off the bench. And in 23 minutes a game, he averaged 15 points and 4 assists. I hate that I'm not well prepared for this stat, but I did hear that per whatever amount of minutes, 30 minutes or whatever, he had like 6 or 7 assists. So, and I think working with a team like the Timberwolves, who are great on offense, but can also transition defense to offense because the defense is so good, it's really going to give Rob those opportunities to move the ball around and find open players. Personally, I think an underrated signing is Joe Ingles. I understand he's like 38 years old, 36, however old he is. Way past his prime, and his prime wasn't magnificent, you could say. But he's still a reliable shooter and a great guy to have on the wing, and I think he's going to help out Rob a lot. If he drives to the paint, realizes he can't get to the rim, he can kick it out to Ingles, and Ingles can hit the three. What sucks is I thought we had a lot of guys like that on our team, but we really don't. Like I said, Naw started to miss a lot of shots in the playoffs. Ant wasn't as efficient as he was the entire year, but it was just really a rough path to get to the finals that we had. And with seeing how stacked the West is now, it's going to continue to be that way. So we kind of have to fix our flaws right away because we don't want to miss the championship window. I mean, Conley's about to retire, probably. You have Rudy and Cat who are getting up in age. Not old, of course, but they are getting there, and they're not going to be able to play forever, especially under the contract. I mean, they just had to pay that massive luxury tax, so there's going to be a point where we're either going to have to trade some guys or just let some guys walk in free agency. I would say the championship window, if we want to win right away, is probably 2 years. And Rob can be a big part of that and really help out the squad. But when we get back to the stats, we can see that he shot 47.5% from the field, which is pretty solid. He's an 80% free throw shooter, which is great because for some reason we're not really that good at free throws. And he only averaged 2 turnovers a game, which is pretty solid. People say his defense isn't great, but he did average a steal a game, which I will take. And I understand that he is undersized at 6'1", 175. You don't usually see guys get drafted in the top 10 at that size. If there's anyone that can make up for it, it's Rob Dillingham. I don't want to just use this video for Rob Dillingham, although I am extremely excited for that, and I think he's going to become one of my favorite players. I also want to talk about Terrence Shannon Jr. because I think he's going to be a beast. Now, unlike Rob Dillingham, Shannon is a bit older. He's 23 compared to Rob, who is 19, which is actually something I like because we lost a few guards in free agency. We lost Slow-Mo. We don't necessarily need a veteran because we just got Ingles and the starting 5 is full of vets, but we do need someone who's up there in age and ready to compete now, doesn't need a lot of developing, and I think Terrence Shannon is that. He spent a good amount of time in college, but he basically carried that Illinois team last year, and he looked like a leader. One thing I am worried about is him transitioning to the Timberwolves. He's not going to be the #1 option, and that's what he's been used to for the past 4 to 5 years. So it's really going to depend on how he adjusts to that, but if he can learn from guys like Ant and Conley and learn how to be a great teammate in the NBA, he's going to be very successful in this league and on the Timberwolves for a long time. One thing I can say about Shannon is that he's just an athlete. The guy's 6'6", 225. I mean, he's just massive for a shooting guard. I guess he typically played the point, but on the T-Wolves, he's going to be a shooting guard, and hopefully Ant's backup or third behind Nikhil. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of Terrence Shannon during the season and during March Madness, but I looked back at his tape once he was drafted, and I immediately fell in love with his game. It seems like he can shoot, he can get to the rim, and he can move the ball around. And at that size, he's going to learn how to play defense in the NBA, and I think he's going to be a good defender as well. I mean, you got to think, if he's going up against Ant and Conley and Cat and Rudy and Jaden and all these guys in practice, his defense is only going to get better. And you could say that for every rookie and every prospect, but for Shannon, he's just really gone to the best opportunity, and he's already handled a lot of adversity with the unfortunate things that he's had to go through. So I think he's got a chip on his shoulder, especially because he fell in the draft. If he didn't have to go through the tough things that he did, get involved in those false accusations, then he probably would have went top 10 to top 15. That's just the type of talent he has. Now, I think his age probably would have dragged some teams away, but either way, he's a baller and teams wouldn't have denied that. But I can say I'm super glad we were able to get him, and I'm excited to see what he does for the team. I'm just excited for next season in general. I know the NFL's coming up, so I'm really looking forward to that. With last season, I just found this new love for basketball, and it's not quite at the level I am for football, but it's getting there. It's just that the Timberwolves have been so fun to watch recently, and that's just not something I'm used to. but I can't wait to see what these rookies do next season. We are kind of lacking at point guard depth with just Conley and Rob, but the Summer League game is coming up on Friday. I believe it's at 2 p.m. If it's not, I will put something in the video that tells you when it is. At the same time, you can look it up on ESPN. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I still stand by what I said. I think the Timberwolves won the draft, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about it enough. Anyways, peace out. Till next time.